Batman has officially been rebooted for the first time in almost 10 years, and we're about to cover the entire first issue of his new series from start to finish.
Peak fiction incoming.
So initially the story picks up in downtown Gotham City with Jim Gordon, who is now just a regular police officer, and his partner Officer Espinoza making a quick stop at a local convenience store so Jim could get a hot cup of coffee despite the fact that it was a scorching hot day in the summer. However, Jim wasn't really able to enjoy his cup of coffee for too long, because moments later none other than Killer Croc came pouncing onto a nearby meat truck to steal a bunch of meat before fleeing the scene. So Officer Espinoza started freaking out and panicking, trying to figure out what their approach to the incident should be, but thanks to his many years of experience with this town, Jim knew that a situation like this called for backup, and by backup he meant none other than Batman himself. That's when the story jumps over to Bruce looking out of the giant hole Croc created while breaking out of Arkham Towers, expressing that he was getting pretty tired of having to deal with these sorts of scenarios. Killer Croc's doctor, Dr. Zeller, would then explain that they were just as surprised as Batman was because Wayland admitted himself into the towers and could have left any time he wanted without question. So not only did he break out of there for no reason, but they didn't know how he was powerful enough to do so because the unit was supposed to be durable enough to withstand a bomb blast. Batman then goes on to respond that he actually wasn't surprised at all, indicating that Killer Croc hasn't been Wayland Jones for a long time, and just like the rest of his rogues gallery, he knew that Wayland would eventually disappoint him in one way or another because people never really change. According to Dr. Zeller though, changing was exactly what Wayland was doing, because when he started shedding his skin recently, somehow the shedding went deeper as if he were shedding on the inside of his body as well, resulting in the regression of his mind and resulting in a childlike state of mind. So she believed that even though he was still capable of great violence, he was also capable of great tenderness, but he was also more afraid than ever right now. After that, Bruce asked if she'd already called the police, and Zeller was offended by this question because although she was new around these parts, she wasn't stupid and knew that calling Batman first was much more reasonable. So Bruce told her to stall for as long as possible when the police eventually did show up, because if they found Croc before he did, they'd probably end up killing him. After that, he indicated he was going to do everything he could to bring back her patient alive before jumping out of the building and deploying his new Batwing glider. It's here that we're given a bunch of local news snippets and given an idea of what's been going on in Gotham City lately. Some people were claiming that some type of weird green gas was coming up from the sewers near their children's schools. Others were discussing how Gotham had a ninja problem thanks to unregulated dojos, and unsurprisingly, Commissioner Vandal Savage refused to speak on the alarming crime rates that were falsely being reported as getting better. The story then takes things over to Gotham City's police department, where Vandal Savage himself was hosting a meeting with most of Gotham's police force. It's here that he announces that he's deploying tactical urban combat officers to multiply the department's presence within the city, stressing that they specialized in high-intensity security operations and that every officer in the department was obligated to call them in for backup if they encountered augmented criminal activity. That's when one of the officers raised his hand, asking what they should do if they ended up crossing paths with Batman, to which Savage responded that his time would come and that he wouldn't be able to outrun Gotham justice. After that, the story jumps back over to Bruce himself, speeding throughout the streets in his new and improved Batmobile, while a holographic version of Alfred asked him where they were going. Now, if you're unaware, the real Alfred has been dead for a while thanks to Bane, thus why Bruce created this hologram. Nevertheless, Bruce would then respond that he was playing a hunch before being spotted by a nearby squad car that quickly reported his presence to all the other officers. The story then shifts things over to Robinson Park with two young girls being targeted by a street gang regarded as the Creeps, until one of the girls fell on the ground, allowing the gang to surround them both while threatening them with a bunch of scissors. However, before being able to go through with whatever terrible act they were planning, Batman used the Batmobile to smash into multiple members of the gang before exiting the vehicle just moments later and quickly dismantling who looked like the leader. Upon approaching the young girls, he then expressed that for some reason the police department wasn't concerned with the gang's activity in the park lately, which he clearly didn't agree with. He then apologized for not reaching them sooner before stressing that they both needed medical attention, but in the meantime his Batmobile would protect them until the EMT arrived, because as of right now he had some more important matters to tend to. He'd then walk over to Gotham's Natural History Museum after realizing it had undergone some damage, and as he did so, he used the new highly advanced equipment integrated into his suit to analyze the scene of the crime. And after spotting multiple chunks of dead animals, he was certain that this is where Killer Croc was taking refuge. Upon making his way inside the museum, he'd come across a security guard scared for his life and calling for backup while trying to make sure that a mother and her child stayed out of harm's way. As soon as she realized Batman was there though, the little girl's face lit up up with a huge smile of relief before he directed the security guard to put the gun down, because not only was it probably scaring the little girl, but it would only exacerbate the situation and make Killer Croc more angry. After that, he then began walking into the exhibit Croc was in, asking the guard not to call the police, but instead Dr. Zeller, before activating his new electro-charged bat gauntlets and telling Croc it was time to get this over with. However, instead of taking Bruce up on his offer, Croc simply growled as loud as possible before telling Bruce to go away so he could continue gazing at the museum's dinosaur. That's when hologram Alfred decided to intervene, asking Bruce what if Dr. Zeller was right and expressing that he might actually be somewhat of a child right now. But not just any child, but a child who was scared and drowning in fear while trying to navigate a violent world that he couldn't understand. And if anyone could understand how that felt, it was Bruce. So Bruce then deactivated his gauntlets, pulled his cowl off of his head, and sat down right next to Waylon so they could have a conversation. It's here that he states that he once had a T-Rex of his own back at Wayne Manor, and despite not knowing how to talk all that well, Croc was able to realize that Bruce seemed like a different person, stating that it seemed like he had a brand new head. He then expressed that he also had a brand new head, but he felt bad and lost, then shamefully admitting that he ate all the animals at the zoo. After that, he then looked up to the T-Rex again, saying that their heads were alike because they were both bad and scary and unable to think. But that's when Dr. Zeller and some other doctors from Arkham walked in, offering him his T-Rex toy and expressing that they were there to help. So Waylon once again went on to indicate that he didn't like his new brain and he felt like he was a bad person, but knowing that he didn't have control and being able to sympathize for him, Zeller stressed that he may have made a bad choice, but now he had an opportunity to make a good choice. Killer Croc would then willingly go back to Arkham Towers with Zeller and the others, but not before gifting Bruce's T-Rex toy in a surprisingly cute and heartfelt departure. Nevertheless, our story then advances into the future, with Bruce trying to unwind and evaluate the wild and unexpected night he experienced, but in the midst of doing so, he was then contacted by none other than Tim Drake, asking if there was anybody on the police force they were friendly with these days, because he was currently being held up by multiple officers in the midst of trying to stop a crime. But sadly, that's when our issue comes to an end, but if you want to see what happens next in Batman's newest run, let me know in the comments down below.